What's your full name?
Robert Garl Berry.
Do you know where your parents came up with that name?
Yes, it came from my great-grandfather that nobody saw hardly.
Mm-hmm.
So he got married to my great-grandmother and left about a year afterwards. So that name Garl, who knows? Nobody knows too much about that, where he got it from.
And then what's your birthday?
10/5/42.
Oh, coming up.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
wow.
Your birthday's coming up.
Oh yeah, it's getting close.
Like 2 weeks is all.
Oh yeah.
What was your hometown? Where'd you grow up?
Well, I probably started off in Saranap, in a very small little area. It was just a little country place that had a grocery store that you would go down if you picked walnuts and you did your thing. Your dad would buy a great big dill pickle out of a barrel for. And it was Slow Sam's Market, and it was just in the outskirts of Walnut Creek, which was basically where I went to high school and a couple of parts of grade school.
Okay.
So I went in between that and Oakland, which was a whole different lifestyle.
I bet.
Yeah.
Because it was a big city
They had
back
buses, they had transportation you had to take. We didn't have no buses. You had to go, you walked, or you rode a bicycle. I knew that if I got out of the classroom that I was going to be either fighting or running. That was my choice. And so a few occasions I actually climbed out the windows of the classroom and left early.
To avoid the
To miss
altercation.
them, yes. And walked the railroad tracks home, and it's right down by the Kilpatrick's bread factory. You know, it smelled really good around there. And at some points in time, I've had people escort me. I'd be about a block ahead. They'd run to catch me, and I'd run to get away. And they'd slow down, and then I'd slow down. And then it was like 7, maybe 8 blocks, city blocks, Oakland blocks back in those days. So they were pretty long, especially if you're trying to get away.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was just some of the things that I remember that stood out in my life, because I even climbed those billboards. They had these billboards that were at a corner, and one went down one street and showed itself, and one went down the other. So the billboards were kind of a V, and they joined together at the corner. And I remember I couldn't get anywhere to get away from these guys that were chasing me, so I climbed up the billboard and got into the corner and put my arms over the top of the billboard, and when they'd come up into the narrow spot, then I would give them the boot to keep them out. And they didn't make that nice wood that was smooth.
Mm-hmm.
It was very splintery. And so the other kids are sitting down at the bottom throwing rocks at me while I'm ducking rocks and trying to kick this. And then I get hit and I fall down the billboard. Boom, 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 from each little section of board that crossed, and hit the ground with a thunk. And said, "Oh, these guys are down here. I played dead." And one of them said, "Oh, he's dead." And they took off running because they didn't want to get in trouble. And so I did make my getaways. So these are hilarious if you think about them, but at the time they were
Not.
life-threatening.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially for young and impressionable, and even my mother, who was a peace person, no violence, told me to use anything I could get in my hand if I needed it for defense. So she would have never said that before. And Walnut Creek, like a little town, you'd have things that would happen all the time, but nothing to the depth that was in Oakland. Once you get used to it, then it's not so bad. But coming out of the country was kind of bad.
Yeah, big difference.
So I got raised from Walnut Creek to Oakland. Come out of Berkeley, went to Walnut Creek, went out to Oakland, and then back to Walnut Creek, Concord anyway area, and finished my high school in Walnut Creek. Well, I didn't finish high school. I went to the 11th grade and went into the Navy when I was on my 17th birthday. That was as young as you could go in legally, and that's what I did so that I could. I was looking for a way to sleep and eat, and I figured the service gave me both of them. So I didn't have a job that I could support myself because I quit school. So that's why I went into the Navy and stuff. And my mom supported that. Get out of here. So.
Did you have like a best friend or any special friends when you were a kid?
Yeah, I had, well, my best friend I met when I was maybe in the 3rd grade, but we weren't like best friends then. So I would say my best friend I met back again in high school. And we became friends then. And that all turned out because we had an altercation. And it seems like when you meet somebody and beat each other up, you either become their friend or you hate them for life.
It's so true.
So we became friends. And did a lot of crazy things, like drive his car up in the hills to drink illegally when we were young teenagers, and get so drunk that we seen UFOs landing, and we chased them down, but we could never quite find them, and we get far enough back up into the wilds where we started getting scared and said we better watch what we're doing here.
Might have been UFOs. You never caught them.
Just a crazy. Well, it was a sci-fi area. You know, they had lots of movies out with sci-fi and stuff with the War of the Worlds and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it got into your head.
Yeah. You don't think it's much, but when you're probably tooted a little bit and you go running around with your mind not straight, you just do you see that? No. You see things, you hear things. I'm still doing it today, no.
What was his name? I'm not remembering.
Well, his name was, I called him Mike because I refused to call him what he asked me to call him.
What did he ask you?
And he said to call me Moody because that was his grandmother's maiden name.
Oh.
And so they named him Mike, or Moody Michael was his, so they named, but he went by Mike because Moody came to the thing, and he'd say, call me Moody, and I'd say, I can't call you Moody, man. Something about that name. I don't know. And then when we got a little older, then I called him Moody Mike.
Moody Mike.
Or Moody Michael. Because he was a moody person. And we got along well enough to get mad and fight at each other, and then still be able to deal with that, and maybe it'd last a week, maybe it'd last 2 weeks, who knows. And we always seemed to get back together again for some reason. I can't tell you why, but then he died. I'm trying to think of how old he was, but it was maybe close to 50.
Oh, so you knew him. You
Yeah.
stayed friends.
So we were
Yeah,
friends from them that time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Even if he was moody.
Yeah, even if he was. Well, we had a lot of, I think I walked 10 miles one time to get to where I could get a ride. He took off and I left. Yeah, we started off working on the same job together and came home separately, and it was in his vehicle.
Did you have a favorite teacher in school?
That's a really hard question.
Is it? Did you not like school at all?
I was indifferent.
He was very smart. He was one of those smart kind of kids.
Well, I didn't think I needed school.
Yeah, too smart for it.
Yeah, too smart for it. So I thought if you use your common sense, you can't go wrong.
Right.
That's not true, of course, but you can. You can use it only so far, but and I think maybe that's where I had a little bit of mechanical skills and knowledge. Just mechanical things came to me easily, and should you do that or should you do that, it came to me easily. But sometimes what you want to do and what you should do is two different things. So
I think that can be said about lots of situations. What you want and what you need or should do are not always in line with each other.
yeah, like when I went in the Navy and got in situations that I would say no to,
Mm-hmm.
they would say yes to. So I'm saying, how am I going to get through this? Because I know better than to do something that's stupid,
Right. Yeah.
you know. And I had a couple of injuries because I had to do something that I didn't want to do, and I don't know that I was functioning in my top, you know. It's hard to say. You got to do things you don't want to do, so.
Did you have a favorite pet when you were a kid?
Yeah, I did. I had a dog when I was a young kid, and my dad drove over it.
On
But
accident?
the dog would sleep under the back tire, and this dog was fortunate in regards to the fact that it's an old car, even though they made those old cars with heavier stuff. It wasn't a big old car. It was like a 1934 Ford convertible coupe with a rumble seat in the back.
So it wasn't
The
as
rumble
heavy.
seat was like a trunk that would pull up. And it had a seat in it. And you really didn't use it for trunk, you used it for passengers or whatever you could throw in it. So me and my brother rode in the rumble seat in the rain. We used to get on the floorboard and cover up.
Mhm.
My brother fell out of it. He leaned over to look at the tire and fell out of the car while it was moving.
Oh no.
I fell out of the car when it was moving because I opened the door like my dad did, because the door's open from the front,
Uh-huh.
and the wind caught the door and opened it up, pulled me out. So, I don't think OSHA was around then.
No. Well, and aren't they called suicide doors?
Suicide doors,
And
yeah.
that's probably part of why.
Yeah.
Don't open them.
Yeah.
Did you ever get in trouble when you were a child?
Pretty much.
Pretty much all the time?
Well, I had a little brother that had blonde hair,
Uh-huh.
and I used to notice the treatment that he had, and that's what I figured. They just liked him better because he had that blonde hair.
Fair-haired one?
Yeah, fair-haired one, and I'd always see him. My grandma would always pick him up and put him on her lap and pet him, and and I was like 2 years older, so I wouldn't get that treatment necessarily anyway. But yeah, he would do things. He was like the little imp, and he would do something to me, and then I'd get caught doing something back.
You get a lot of trouble.
I'd get in trouble, and pretty soon they just got used to yelling at me, and I just didn't have that like little perfect
Angel.
person thing,
The
But
blonde
he is.
angel.
He's a personal guy, so I can understand it now, but I couldn't then.
Is he your only sibling?
Pardon me?
Is he your only sibling?
No, I have a younger sister that's younger than him,
What are their names?
Catherine and Dennis.
Dennis. I don't think you said it. You just
No,
said the fair-haired one.
the fair-haired one, and they, because my mom and pop split up early, and we were out and living with my mom, and she's just starting a job at Bell Telephone Company. It was the only telephone company around at that time. If you wanted to work for a telephone company in California, you worked for Bell. She started a job there, and my dad and we moved, and my dad stayed 30 miles or 40 miles away, and we didn't hardly see him but once in a while, and they divorced with bad feelings. They didn't like each other, and they weren't civil with each other. And it got to where you paid alimony. How'd they get the alimony? Would he bring it over and hand it to? No, it just wouldn't happen. So they would send me to go get it, and it's just a job I hated.
Yeah, being that in
Just a
between
job I
person.
It's something you always want to see change, but my dad became, it might have been some of the problem, is drinking, and so he died 49 years old.
Oh, he was very young.
Cirrhosis of the liver or something like that.
Well, tell me about your mom. What was her name?
Betty June.
And what do you remember about your mom?
That she could look at you and freeze you right dead in the spot. That she was. It's probably the difference in my mom and my dad. My dad was easy gone. My mom was very abrupt or goal-oriented or something. Maybe on a day like today, if they had all that time to get used to filling your role out. This is what you think of when you're a kid growing up. You're going to be married and you're going to have a family. That's what you're growing up for. Nothing else. It's not like It's not, you don't have 6 choices. You don't get to go out and it started, all those changes started when people had to go to work because not enough money.
Yeah, the economy.
Yeah, you gotta have 2 incomes, you know. And working 2 jobs in that time, probably people did it. I couldn't tell you, I didn't know.
Did you have like grandparents or aunts and uncles that were a big part of your life?
I had both. I had good grandparents. I had good uncle and aunt, cousins from a couple directions, but I didn't see my dad's cousins or my dad's kids. Probably, and grandfather on that side and grandmother and brothers that he had because of the split. When we split off, so you figure I was like 7 when the split came.
Yeah.
So from that point on, I don't think I could have, like when they turned teenagers, recognized anybody from that side of the family.
Okay.
But from my other side, my mom's side, who we dealt with, my uncle was a great guy. We'd go over to his backyard and reload bullets and shoot all day long in his backyard, shoot right out of his backyard. He lived outside, so it was really sparse there. You couldn't do that now.
Yeah. You did.
So he gave me a 22, and I used to go running up in the hills with a 22 rifle when I was very young. And no worries, you know. I'd take a bow, arrows, and go walking up there, and just very hilly, rolls of hills, and see something moving and over there. I wasn't Robin Hood, but once in a while I hit something. But those are just things that you did to spend your time. I mean, you know, in Oakland, you'd go find a big park someplace. In Walnut Creek, you'd go out and away and didn't worry about a lot of those areas. So my uncle reloaded melted lead, shaped the bullet, reloaded it in shells that he reprimed and got together. So we always picked our shells up for, probably reloaded everything but maybe 22 we didn't, or something like that. But he had an old shed that you could barely get to his reloading equipment. You have to move motors over here, you'd have to, it's just a shed that I don't even know how it stayed together. But it was, I loved it because I just go in there and start looking around. Looked pretty, it's a pretty neat shed. So we'd shoot these, go pick up all our brass, pick up that lead again, remelt it again, redo, you know. When I go over to my uncle's house, I used to take lead over for him. So he was a police officer and he would go hunting every year. Deer hunting, fishing. He had a hunting partner that had this old truck that had 5-gallon cans all around it, axes and different things on the bed. It was 1932 Ford. It was they had all this old stuff that ran good. My uncle would walk out and in the side yard and go to test the gun, and he closed the breech on the shotgun and shot a hole in the back of his car, or shot dents into the back of his car, I should say. Turned around, went back and worked on his gun, and come back out and we'd shoot it. And he had drawers like this full of pistols. He had rifles. He had old guns like Western time 44-40s, and he had World War II guns, and he had, he just had a lot of guns. And there was a 30-06 that I loved, that I wanted, but my dumb cousin went and had a kid.
Dumb cousin.
Yeah.
Caught it first.
Went and had a child, and gee, became his favorite. I wasn't his favorite anymore. So I gave that up, but I understood that. But I always had this dream that I'd get that rifle
Back.
Yeah. It wasn't mine, it was always his.
Right, but
Yeah, well, I just liked it so much, you know. He'd load different ammunition for different things.
Mm-hmm.
So uncles, yeah, my uncle on my dad's side, I just heard about their deaths. And when I was in the Navy, my dad died.
Oh, okay, because he was so young.
And I was overseas trying to get off the ship. And they had the funeral and everything, and when I got back, it was all over with. And by the time I was able to get back.
Tell me about your time in the Navy. When I was here last time, you had some fun stories. So how long were you in the Navy?
4 years.
4 years. And did you work on a submarine? Or where were you stationed?
I didn't work on a submarine. I got on one time to see what the heck it was all about, but I was on a small anti-submarine ship. So it was a small escort that fit into the class of a destroyer escort that was just supposedly for submarine warfare.
Okay.
So that's what it was set up for. When I went down there, I could see why instead of already being underwater, that at least I'd have some time to float. If your ship is sinking or something, I don't want to start from under the water.
Right.
I want to start from on top and get away from it if I can.
Where did you do boot camp? Like, where did you start when you first went into the military? Where'd they send you?
Well, they send you to boot camp.
But where was it at?
It was in San Diego.
Okay, so not too far.
San Diego's probably 700 miles,
Yeah.
I would guess. But we rode down from San Francisco down to boot camp, and
Did you ride on the bus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I was on 17th birthday. I looked like a baby.
I was gonna say, you were the fair-haired
Yeah.
one.
I had like about 3 hairs come out of my chin. And in boot camp, the instructors stood up. I didn't think I had to shave. They tell you everybody has to shave, you know. You're gonna shave all the way from up here in the ear, top of the ear, all the way down, and shave underneath. And I didn't have any of that stuff. I had maybe some peach fuzz on my lip or something that I didn't even think you seen,
Yeah.
because I didn't see it. And got out there, and something glowed out there in the sunlight when that drill instructor looked at me and he said, "Do you know what we do with chickens, boy?" Oh, no, what do you do with chickens? And he reached down there and he plucked out a pair. He said, "We plucked them." He said, "I told you to shave from here to here to here to here." So we need some instruction on shaving. So he marched the whole company back into the barracks, had them all go into the bathroom, line up, and then had me shave so I could show everybody the proper way to shave. Had me shave in front of this mirror. And I wasn't too happy about being made the idiot.
Right.
And so we had, in those days, a Gillette double-edged razor.
Mm-hmm.
And they came apart into pieces. And you would put a double-edged blade into this top and then screw this thing together, and you would have, and believe it or not, they call this a safety razor.
Okay.
Very unsafe razor.
Sounds like it.
Oh yeah. But anyway, so they had me blather all off, and then I was so mad I went like this, and I hit the tip of my ear, which took off a piece of skin or a chunk.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, the baby cut himself. Here, let's put something on it." And he had this thing called a styptic pencil, which was like a piece of wax almost, but maybe almost like a crayon or something. And he pushed that on my ear, and it was like putting a cigarette lighter on your ear or something. A car cigarette lighter was like just hot, burning. And he said, "Oh, look, he's gonna cry." And oh, the baby's gonna cry. And they said maybe he needs more of this, or maybe. And then he helped me out a little bit, and maybe that's why he put that's when he put that styptic pencil on that cut. Yeah, so I'd run. I was a qualified boat coxswain by the time I got out of that place, which put me on a better position when I went on board ship, because destroyer escorts are small ships and they don't always have qualified people enough.
So it'd rank you up higher.
Yeah. So I ended up being a boat coxswain on board the ship, which manned the ship's boat, not the captain's gig. The captain's gig had his own. The captain had his own coxswain, and he got off shortly, and the only person they had on board with that was me, so that's what I transferred over to that, and they broke another guy in for just being the work, put the boat over, get in the boat, go out, and get to the buoy, do whatever you had to do, things that you had to have the boat for. Because we were a ship, our captain was a junior, because we were in such a small ship, our captain was a junior officer. In regards to, our captain was actually a lieutenant commander, but that is just before you get your scrambled eggs on your hat, the officer's hats. So when you got your scrambled eggs, then you're a commander, and that's kind of a step that most officers want to get to and start getting over. That's like a goal, you know. And then you work from that point and move. So our captain was. It's kind of like watching the old movies, Mr. Roberts and things like that. They used to bring memories back to me, and they were made maybe about that time, but maybe they were made during the World War, or they were made for that period or something. That's what it was.
We were talking about your time in the Navy. You said you were in the Philippines.
Yeah,
What other cool places?
Hong Kong.
You got to go to Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong was one of the.
Was that your favorite? I think I
Well, it
remember
was-
last time you.
Yeah, we liked Hong Kong because we became a station ship, which meant that we stayed there for a month.
So you got some quality time
So
there.
we were there all the time, and my job was to do the mail run. And so I would take the boat in, go to pick all the mail up, and then come back and deliver to each ship that was anchored in for only a couple of days. So ships that would come in and come on maybe a week or something, then we would run the mail to those ships. So after that, after the mail, then once I get the mail call done, then I was gone. I'd just come back and put the boat back up on the ship and then go on the beach.
Where'd you meet your wife?
At my brother's house in
Walnut Creek.
Walnut Creek up on the hillside.
Were you out of
That's
the Navy
where
then?
I met her. She was
It was on
going to
Sunnyvale.
go on the back of her little Greek buddy's motorcycle for a run. I have to think of that. Anyway, she came over, and that's where I saw her first, on the back of the bike. You disagree with that or no?
Oh no, I was just gonna say it was on Sunnyvale,
Sunnyvale.
behind the church.
Yeah, on the top of the hill, right at the end of the Sunnyvale.
Yeah,
Oh, that's over Denny's other house.
yeah, that was the first house. The other house was.
But I saw you on the back of Johnny's bike
Yeah,
before that.
that was then.
He saw you before you knew he saw you.
Yeah.
He was peeking at
And
you.
then when we were going to go on a ride or something, somehow I got her on the bike. I don't remember exactly how I did, but
Charm and
I know
wit.
it's Sunnyvale. Okay, I remember Sunnyvale. That was the house after that went up on Oakland Boulevard. Yeah, you don't even remember that.
Oh, I do. I remember that.
So the
Very
wine
much.
house, the cheap beer house.
Yeah, that was afterwards.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first met her?
Huh?
How old were you?
22 maybe.
So right out of the military.
22, 23 years
And I
old.
was 18.
And I was gonna say, how old were you?
Yeah.
And so, how long did you guys date before you got married?
Not long.
Long enough to have a kid, and we weren't together all the time at that point in time. So she did get pregnant, and
He
then
went his own way and I
yeah,
went
she
mine.
went and lived in Concord. I learned how to play basketball in Oakland,
Oh,
hands-on. And when I came back to Walnut Creek and was playing basketball, they'd always say, "You cheated! You can't do this, you can't do that." What? Did the referee see me?
no blood, no foul.
Played a hands-on game, and that's when we went to Pittsburgh, which was a lot of black people.
Mm-hmm.
They intimidated our team.
Yeah.
Our team got intimidated. They left me. And you could tell that because first off the way they played, and they left me in the locker room all alone showering.
Oh no.
Everybody else went and got their clothes and just went and got on the bus because they didn't want to be in there in the same place where there wasn't a lot of people or something. And if I didn't have all that Oakland experience, I probably have been right along with them. But I did have, and finding yourself all alone, finally you had to suck it up. It's time to suck it up. And when they come over and give you their very aggressive attitudes, you have to just be the same way.
Give it right back.
That's what they understand. That's what you understand they mean by it. Yeah, I didn't even get into Oakland for a little while when I was shipped off to a day camp or something when I was a kid, one of the younger things. And a day camp, maybe a week camp or something like that. It's the only camp I ever went to. To me, going to a camp was not fun because we had a whole busload we had to sit there and wait for this bus at the Golden Gate School to take this bus up into the Oakland Hills where they had a camp for what my mom thought I'd like. And I was in the fight then. They separated us before we got on the bus, and then they separated us when we got up there. And because this kid that I was fighting back, because he was so pushy, because he was so foul-mouthed that he got into trouble, I pretty much got away with it. I mean, I think it was his fault personally, but like I said before, I learned a way. You can't back down, and you just have to do, that's what it was then. I'm pretty amazed that it's a lot different. It's not something I thought would pass. And you thought, I was taught not to be prejudiced by my mother. My mom taught me not to be a racist, but I'm not one of the really open, friendly. I had a lot of things I was in situations growing up that I was experiencing at first and didn't want to take on, without a dad, without I had a dad, but not in my life, other than once in a while. So it makes a big difference, and that's like a stigmatism or something that you got to grow up with. And it took me a long time to not be mad at my mom. I was in the Navy when it
when we were first married.
when it came to me. I needed to be better to my mom.
Tell me about your kids. How many kids do you have?
Well, my wife had 5.
5 kids.
So we're guilty of them all. They pretty much came at different points of our lives, but we were always together and not together and together. And I know that sounded not too good, but I should say
Right, yeah.
we had 5 kids, but we didn't get married until a year and a half probably. And today that's
Steve was
after
6 months
Steve
old.
was born.
Yeah, Steve was
That's
6
what I
months
meant.
old. Okay, yeah, it wasn't a year and a half.
It's,
Well, yeah,
Well,
it actually
yeah.
was.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
because when I was pregnant, I was off
Yeah,
someplace
yeah.
else.
So, I came from a family that was split up, and for me it was a really serious thing. And even though I held off for a while to even ask her,
to marry you.
but she got pregnant, and then she had our oldest boy and was living with the
Doesn't like talking about the people I live with. Really don't the angels.
with some people
Oh,
I didn't.
oh, okay.
Some people I didn't care for, and whenever it came across to me that I had a son needs a mother, needs some original mother. That's what I know, and it needs the father, and so we started our life together after my boy was so old. So there was a lot of things going on in between all that. But anyway, then when he was, I don't know, a year and a half or something like that, I'm not sure, but we started talking about it. They lived over in part in Concord that I went over to that I thought, yeah, I don't like this. I didn't like that part long before that because
It was a rough area.
I had a lot of confrontations in that area even before I met her.
So you didn't like her being there.
Yeah. So then after a while, and we lived for a while, and I had made a plan that we were going to go to Reno for the quick marriage, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about it, I guess, and we kind of rushed it because
It was the end of the year, and Bob wanted to claim to us all his taxes.
Honesty's good. If you're gonna get married anyways, you might as well get a
It
tax
made
perk.
sense. Why
it makes
wait?
sense. Exactly.
We're
Get
gonna
the
do
tax
it.
perk.
And so we got Chris's dad to drive us up to Reno.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of things that Chris's dad's kind of scary to ride with.
Bad driver or bad temper?
Oh,
Not a bad temper. He could be if you first meet him, you could think, I kind of thought he didn't like me, and he might not have. I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't ask him because I don't like nobody that doesn't like me. That's the way I always figured it. You don't like me?
Good. I don't want
Yeah,
you.
hit the road. But I don't expect everybody to like me, but he was kind of like a grumpy guy.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, I don't know.
he had a very deep voice, and he worked hard. And so
Yes,
he was tired
he
a
was a
lot.
hard-working man.
And
That's
then
something
was
I
he
could
just
associate
quiet?
with,
Was
yeah.
that why you didn't know how he
Yeah,
felt
and,
about you?
Anyway, he didn't always see well.
Oh.
And we were driving to Sacramento, and these cones were taking out the lane for 200, 300 feet or something. And he's still driving straight towards those cones. And I'm waiting for him, and I say, these cones are coming up, Harv, and I'm wanting to grab the steering wheel. And when we got to Sacramento and filled up with gas, I got into the driver's seat and said, I'll drive now, Harv, because I could see that's, I watch when anybody's driving, I don't care. And anyway, we went up there and went to a cheap place and paid $20 for something, whatever we
We went
gave.
to the Justice of the Peace, and
What?
the Justice of the Peace, and we spent the rest of the night in the car. All four of us slept in the car.
Yeah, well we and anyway, when we got married, my wife then was laughing. And while we're getting the thing and we're holding our hands, and I can't believe she's laughing. I can't believe she's laughing, and I'm squeezing her hand. This is not funny. This is serious business. And she's laughing, and I said, "Oh, what kind of a response is that? That's not one that I heard of or knew of." And it's all emotion. It's about what it is. It's instead of some people cry, some people laugh, some people are stoic, some people are not. And I was serious. And I thought, you can't be laughing during this. So that's one thing. Driving that was one thing that came to mind that took me a while to get over, because I still remember it. It's not gone.
It was Christmas Eve that we got married.
Aww.
December 24th.
What?
December 24th, Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
In 64?
Yeah.
65.
65.
Yeah.
We were
So
together in 64.
for a while, we kind of changed something, didn't we? Or we just didn't. We did something different because we didn't want the kids to go through the mind-boggling thing of, when they get old enough, 2 and 2 is 4, and
Oh no, you didn't want to tell them the truth. I never cared.
yeah, I didn't want to tell them the
So
truth.
you changed the date?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was willing to do that, but
I wasn't.
we came back on it.
Yeah.
Or I did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So then we moved into that place and moved out to, where did we go, to your mom's afterwards, right?
We were staying at my mom's.
We were staying at your mom's for a while.
We stayed at your mom's at first, and then,
Oh, that didn't work.
no, that didn't work at all. And so we went to my mom's and dad's.
Yeah, my mom's, she's too much in charge. Without saying anything.
She just was giving you the look.
Just to
More
look.
than that.
Yeah. But we lived at your mom's for a while, and I'm.
We moved out just before Steve's first birthday.
What was our first house? That
Oak
was
Park Boulevard, the duplex.
Oak Park Boulevard. Yeah, that was a weird place.
What did you do for work when you got out of the Navy?
I went to work when I first got out of the Navy. I went to work for Owens, Illinois company, made bottles and jars.
Okay.
So I worked there probably a year and a half or something like that, and bought a motorcycle. And went down and had a bunch of stuff chromed and took it apart and put it together and painted it and chopped it, took off all the fenders, and I just had the rear fender, no front fender. Had extended my front end and put 20-inch wheel on it that cost a mag wheel, everything I could do to get a chopper. And it wasn't one of these, even though it was one of these, and because the laws were the front of the seat should be lower than the handlebar, or can't be lower than 18 inches from the handlebar. So the highest part of the handlebar and the lowest part of the seat had a measurement. And all these guys that had bars like that, every one of them are illegal. Even mine were illegal. They had to be down like this. So I keep mine partly tight. And if I get pulled over, I'd pull them down. Then I'd push them back up. Not so loose that they would go down, but
Move by your
yeah, you had to
hand.
use some strength. So they would find California Highway Patrol had things against bikers.
Mhm.
and you could understand why. They had lots of stories to tell. And so even though I looked like a wolf, I wasn't one. But the cop gave me a ticket one time, and I said, "You give me this ticket just because I look like a biker or something, you know? Isn't that prejudice?" "Well, you ride a bike?" Yeah, I do, but I drive a car.
Right.
You don't get a citation for driving a car unless I do something wrong. So they would give you tickets. They would give you fix-it tickets. So I had new exhaust put on, come down like this, went up like this. You look at a motorcycle, you want it to have lines. It's got to have the lines. These are lines. You know, it's not a bench with wheels. Well, a lot of motorcycles out there look like a bench with wheels. Not ours. We had parts made that nobody had. We had these parts made for front ends that they sell at motorcycle shops today. If we had been businessmen, we'd been rich.
Yeah.
But so much for that. We had a lot of stuff, a lot of styles that we were in on the beginning. A lot of groups. LA was very chromy, but benchy. He didn't have the lines. And when we start coming out, pretty soon they're big, long front ends that are extended. You can't hardly even ride them because you go to lay over and the frame will drag on the ground and stuff like this, you know. We made ours functional with lines and handle easier, but I could whip that old Harley Davidson around just like this. I got myself so excited one time when I pulled myself out of an accident because I made such a quick reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And pulled that bike down and went right around what I was going to hit. And I thought, man, that was quick. That was a good reaction. I remember telling people about that. I lucked out that time. There's been more than, the old saying is that there isn't a motorcycle that's not been down.
Did you ever have a bad wreck?
Well, I've had a few. I've lost some skin a few times, and been really close to a bad wreck. Almost run over by a truck. Almost, you know. I mean, really close. Enough to make you where when you get off your bike, your legs are weaky.
Oh, okay.
Shaky.
Mm-hmm.
So that it does shake you up and. Now my legs are like that normal. No.
Maybe they learned.
Yeah. So, yeah, marriage and then our kids, and our kids were. That's when I stopped to think that when somebody said, you know, I'm gonna wish your kids. I think who was it? Somebody said they wish my kids were like I was. That would be enough payback for what I did, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh gosh, I don't want kids like
Please no.
I want my kids to
I think that was
be
my
something and be somebody, you know, and so.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you one more question and we're gonna finish because we've almost been talking for 2 hours.
Okay.
If you have some advice that you want to give your kids or your grandkids, your family, what's some advice you want to leave them with?
Al. The most important thing I guess I can think of that not I've always been, but just be spiritual in the Lord, and I just love the Lord Jesus, and you're not gonna, you know, I've walked so many different directions And I'm not been always on the right side. But I know God's forgiving, so just know Him.